She wasn't looking for the past. She was only cleaning out her late mother's attic when a small wooden box slipped from the highest shelf and crashed onto the floor. Inside were faded photographs, an old silver necklace, and one unopened envelope. Across the front, in handwriting she recognized instantly, were 5 words that stole the air from her lungs. For Claire. 20 years ago, Ethan Carter had disappeared from her life without a goodbye. She believed he had abandoned her, but as she unfolded the yellowed letter with trembling hands, one sentence shattered everything she thought she knew. If you're reading this, it means I failed to find my way back to you. Claire's entire world suddenly felt like a lie. She had spent 20 years trying to forget her first love. Now she had to discover why he had never stopped writing to her. At 42, Claire Bennett lived a quiet life in Portland, Oregon. She owned a cozy bookstore where people escaped into novels while she quietly avoided writing another chapter of her own. Customers often described her as kind. Friends called her independent. But every night, after locking the bookstore doors, she drove home to an empty house that echoed with memories she had never truly buried. Her mother had passed away only weeks earlier. Sorting through decades of forgotten belongings felt like closing one life before beginning another. Instead, it opened the one story she had spent years trying to erase. She sat on the attic floor and carefully unfolded the letter. The paper smelled faintly of cedar and old ink. Ah. Claire. If you're reading this, then I never managed to tell you the truth myself. You'll probably hate me. Maybe you already do. But I never left because I stopped loving you. I left because someone made sure you believed I did. Claire froze. Her breathing became shallow. She continued reading. Your mother asked me to disappear. The words blurred through sudden tears. 20 years earlier, Claire had been 22. Ethan Carter was 24. He played guitar in local cafes while studying architecture during the day. She loved books. He loved buildings. Together, they dreamed about buying a tiny cottage somewhere along the Oregon coast. Every Sunday, they drove to Cannon Beach with cheap coffee and impossible plans. I'll build the house, Ethan laughed one afternoon. And I'll fill it with books, Claire replied. And dogs. 3 dogs. 5. She smiled. You're impossible. So our dreams. Their love never felt dramatic. It felt safe, comfortable, certain, which was exactly why Claire never imagined it could disappear overnight. Claire's mother, Margaret, had never approved. Ethan has dreams, she once said coldly, but dreams don't pay mortgages. She wanted Claire to marry someone successful, someone predictable, someone wealthy. Claire refused to listen until one terrible Friday Ethan never arrived for dinner. His phone stopped working. His apartment was empty. No note, no explanation, nothing. For months, Claire searched everywhere. Friends knew nothing. His family had already moved overseas after his father accepted a job in England. Eventually, everyone reached the same painful conclusion. He had chosen to leave, without her. Claire spent years wondering what she had done wrong. Eventually, wondering turned into silence. Silence became acceptance, or something that looked like it. Back in the attic, Claire unfolded another page tucked behind the first. Your mother came to see me 2 days before I disappeared. She told me she had been diagnosed with a serious heart condition. She said the stress of our relationship might kill her. She begged me to leave. She made me promise never to tell you. Claire covered her mouth. No, her mother had never mentioned any illness, not once. The letter continued. She also told me you had accepted a graduate scholarship in New York and wanted a fresh start without me. I didn't believe her. Oh. Then she showed me a letter. A letter with your signature. It said you had fallen out of love. Claire's eyes widened. She had never written it. Someone had. The next morning, Claire searched through every remaining box in the attic. Hours later, she found an old journal belonging to her mother. Inside was a folded carbon copy of a typed letter. The fake breakup letter. At the bottom was Claire's forged signature. Next to it, written in her mother's handwriting, "Better one broken heart today than a lifetime of regret." Claire collapsed into tears. Everything she believed for 2 decades had been built on a lie. But one question haunted her. If Ethan had learned the truth, why hadn't he returned? She unfolded the final page. 5 years after I left, I discovered your mother had lied. I came back immediately. Your neighbor told me you'd married. I couldn't destroy your happiness. So I walked away again. Claire whispered into the empty attic. I never got married. The neighbor had mistaken someone else. Another cruel accident, another wrong turn, 2 lives destroyed by assumptions. At the bottom of the page was one final line. If fate still believes in us, I'll be playing at Harbor Lights Cafe every Friday in Seattle until the end of this summer. Claire looked at the date. The letter had been written 6 months earlier. Today was Friday. Without giving herself time to overthink, she grabbed her keys and began the 3-hour drive north. Rain followed her almost the entire way. Every mile felt like chasing a ghost. What if he wasn't there? What if he had finally stopped coming? What if she was too late again? By sunset, she reached the waterfront cafe. Music drifted through the open windows. Soft guitar, warm applause. Her heart pounded. She stepped inside. A man stood beneath gentle amber lights. Older, silver beginning to appear in his dark hair. But when he smiled between songs, she recognized him instantly. Ethan. He looked toward the entrance. Their eyes met. His hand froze on the guitar strings. The room disappeared. Neither of them moved. For a moment, 20 years simply vanished. After the performance ended, Ethan walked toward her slowly. His voice barely escaped. Claire? She nodded, already crying. You got my letter. I just found it. His shoulders fell with a mixture of relief and disbelief. I came back so many times. I know. I thought you'd moved on. I thought you left. Neither of them spoke for several seconds. Finally, Claire laughed softly through tears. We've been arguing with lies for 20 years. Ethan smiled sadly. The worst part is, neither of us ever stopped loving the other. She reached into her purse and placed the forged letter between them. The truth. He looked at it briefly before folding it shut. I stopped being angry years ago. So did I. Then, almost shyly, he asked, Do you still like Cannon Beach? She laughed. I still want 5 dogs. He grinned. I always hoped you'd say that. Over the next several months, they didn't try to reclaim the past. They built something new. They talked about everything they had missed, the birthdays, the losses, the dreams that survived, the ones that didn't. Healing wasn't instant. Some wounds left permanent scars. But love, they discovered, wasn't measured by perfect timing. It was measured by the willingness to begin again. 1 year later, Ethan invited Claire to Cannon Beach. The old cottage they once dreamed about didn't exist. Instead, he stood beside an empty piece of land overlooking the ocean. He handed her a rolled-up blueprint. Across the top he had written, "The library house. 1 room for books," he said. 1 room for music. And plenty of room. She smiled. For 5 dogs? He laughed. Exactly. She wrapped her arms around him as waves crashed behind them. For 20 years, one unopened letter had separated 2 hearts. But sometimes life gives us a second chance. Not because time stands still, but because love quietly waits for the truth to catch up. If you've ever believed someone stopped loving you, remember this. Sometimes the story you were told isn't the story that was written. And sometimes, the letter you almost never open becomes the beginning of the happiest chapter of your life.